Hello everybody, this is Ken.
And this is Imelda, and I'm reading the Society News for Friday the 3rd of November 2017. On Tuesday there will be a coffee morning held to support the Society on Tuesday the 7th of November, that is, at the post office in Knighton. All are welcome from 10:30am until 12 noon. And the Dolphins Club will be meeting to swim on Tuesday the 7th of November at Waterside Pool, Wight. The pool is closed to the public during the session. If you would like to go swimming, please call the Society first to advise us of your level of swimming ability, and please note that lifeguards are in attendance during the session. On Wednesday, the weekly coffee morning will be held at Millbrook House on Wednesday the 8th of November. The coffee mornings are not just for blind and partially sighted people. Anyone can come along and have a cup of coffee or tea as well as a piece of cake. The Owls will be meeting on this same day, Wednesday the 8th of November at 2 p.m. at Millbrook House. The talk will be on an introduction to Owl Help. The group lasts approximately 45 minutes, which is then followed by tea or coffee and cake. Thursday, the Knitters and Natterers are meeting on Thursday the 9th of November at Millbrook House. The group meets from 11am until 2 p.m. You can knit or just natter, and then later in the afternoon, volunteers come in and read to the group from different topics. Any other news? The bowling group will be bowling at LA Bowl in Ryde on Wednesday the 29th of November at 2 p.m. The cost is £3.95, which includes shoe hire. They will be having lunch beforehand at the Ryde Castle Hotel. If you wish to join them for lunch, please meet there at 12 noon. All are welcome. Please note there is no transport for this group. We are now taking orders for large print calendars and diaries for 2018. If you would like an order form or more information, please call Laura Jasper, Centre Administrator, on telephone 522205 or email enquiries@iwsb.org.uk. We are looking into organising a monthly audio book club to be held at Lord Louis Library in Newport. This would probably take place on the last Wednesday of each month in the afternoon, starting in the new year. If this is a group you may be interested in joining, please register your interest with Laura Jasper, Centre Administrator, on 522205. or email enquiries@iwsb.org.uk. Please note that there will be no transport available for this group. The story writing competition is gathering momentum. So, if you're feeling creative, why not enter, as there are some great prizes to be won. Entry forms must be returned by Friday the 10th of November. And finally for me, we will be holding a low vision open day here at Millbrook House on Tuesday the 21st of November, 2:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. We will be joined by Dolphin, Enhanced Vision and Calibre. Come along and explore the latest products and technologies for blind and partially sighted people. There will also be an expert from O2 mobile phones to offer advice and support with using smartphone technology. Refreshments and parking will be available. For more information, again, please call Laura Jasper, Centre Administrator, on 522205 or again email enquiries@iwsb.org.uk.
Scaffolding news. Please find below a list of known footway obstructions for works including scaffolding or hoarding. We are unable to include end dates as many are extended on a week by week basis. Also included are tables and chairs permits that have been issued in the past week. Bay area. There is currently scaffolding at Lloyd's Bank, Regent Street, Shanklin. Carlton Hotel, Esplanade, Sandown. 4B, Station Avenue, Sandown. 4 Ford Street, Sandown. Cliffview, Hamburg Road, Ventnor. New scaffolding is due up at Grange Gifts, 97 to 95 High Street, Shanklin, delayed, dates unknown. The Pink Peach Hotel, Esplanade, Sandown, due up 6th of November. Old M&M Wardle Store, 70 High Street, Shanklin, due up at 14th of November. 91A and 91B High Street, Ventnor, due up 21st of November. Cowes area. There is currently scaffolding at development site Castle Street, East Cowes. Cooperative Funeral Care, 14 Ferry Road, East Cowes. Hursts, 1718 High Street, Cowes. 28 Albert Street, East Cowes. 61 York Street, Cowes. There are currently hoardings at 272 to 283 Arctic Ride Road, Cowes. 93 High Street, Cowes. New hoardings are due up at Watch Cottage, the Parade, Cowes, due up on the 6th of November.
And in the Newport area, there is currently scaffolding at Nippert Court, West Street, Newport, 38 Key Street, Newport, 18 Lugley Street, Newport, 20 Holyrood Street, Newport, 16 Lugley Street, Newport, 81 Trafalgar Road, Newport, 38 Chapel Street, Newport, and new scaffolding is due to go up at Chapel Cottage, Main Road, Chillerton, due up on the 7th of November.
Ryde area. There is currently scaffolding at St Mary's Church, Ryde, along St Mary's Passage. Oasis Dental Practice, 9 Melville Street, Ryde. The Yarbridge, 99 New Road, Brading. 75 George Street, Ryde. 46 to 50, the Old Waxworks, High Street, Brading. Opposite the Old Gallery Shop, High Street, Seaview. New scaffolding is due up at 7 Newport Street, Ryde, due up on the 7th of November. Dan's Kitchen, Newlands, St Helens, due on the 11th of November. West Wight area. There is currently scaffolding at Mulberry's, High Street, Yarmouth. New scaffolding is due up at Edinburgh Court, Bridge Street, Yarmouth, due on the 3rd of November.
And now we come to the County Press for November the 3rd, 2017. And the headline, there's only one headline this week, is Medics Failed Him. Gross systematic negligence blamed for baby Elliot's death. This article is written by James Woolven. The entirely preventable death of a baby at St Mary's Hospital has been branded gross systemic neglect by the Isle of Wight coroner. A string of bad decisions and failings during the mother's labour led to Elliot Williams' death, one that could and should have been prevented, Coroner Caroline Summeray said. Elliot, son of Chelsea Mooland and Nicholas Williams of Castle Street, East Cowes, suffered perinatal hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, a lack of oxygen to the brain, after delays in his delivery while his heart rate fluctuated to dangerously low levels. The parents have paid tribute to their handsome little boy. Miss Mooland and Mr. Williams, who have since had another child, said, "Elliot, you will be forever with us in our thoughts and our hearts. We love and miss you so much, our precious and handsome little boy. We wish you could be with us every single day. We promise to you that your little sister will know how special you are and love you as much as we do. See you on the other side, baby." Miss Mooland was induced at 38 weeks because the baby was small in the womb. He had stopped growing, or his growth had significantly slowed. This, combined with the fact she was induced, made the labour high risk and should have meant staff were especially vigilant. Cardiotechography, CTG, was used and showed Elliot's heart rate dropping. Midwife Diane Whedon was criticised by the coroner for not calling for help earlier. Giving evidence at the inquest in Newport this week, Mrs. Whedon said she became fixated on helping Miss Mooland with pain management and didn't fully appreciate the gravity of the baby's situation. A fresh eyes review, when another member of the team is supposed to look over the CTG and make sure everything is progressing normally, did not happen. So the fluctuating heart rate was not picked up. When Mrs. Whedon finally did call for help, Registrar Dr. Tintin Hawete did not act quickly enough, the coroner said. At this point, the baby's heart rate was pathological and the baby should have been delivered using instruments straight away. However, Mr. Hitway did not act and the baby was born naturally around half an hour later, showing no signs of life. The baby was resuscitated by Dr. Mike Hall, a consultant neonatologist, who was called from Princess Anne Hospital in Southampton, assessed the child as having suffered severe brain damage from lack of oxygen, with high-term damage, if he survived at all. The new parents made the heartbreaking decision. It was in the best interests of their son to discontinue care and let him go. The baby was left in his parents' arms for just under an hour before he died on December the 22nd, 2015. Expert witness consultant obstetrician Tracy Johnson said the death would have been avoided if decisions were made and actions were taken more quickly and the baby was delivered more swiftly. Mrs. Whedon and Dr. Hitchway were criticised by the coroner and told to refer themselves to their governing bodies. Both have received extensive retraining and apologised for their mistakes. Responding to the coroner's finding, Dr. Barbara Stuttle, chief nurse at Isle of Wight National Health Service Trust, said, "This was a serious incident, which we are very sorry about, and we have expressed our deepest sympathies and apologies to Elliot's family. We will be implementing all the recommendations made by the coroner. Since this tragic event, we have changed and improved practice over the last year, and we are committed to continuing to learn to ensure services are safe for patients. We believe the changes we have made ensure babies and mothers are as safe as possible at St Mary's."
Jail for child images offences. A sex offender has been jailed for downloading indecent images of children while on a suspended sentence. Philip Brooks, 38, of Clarence Road, East Cowes, was given a 24-month suspended sentence in July last year for downloading indecent images of children. He committed the offence again this year, and this time was sent to prison. Prosecuting Simon Foster said police became aware of peer-to-peer file sharing at his address. They seized the computer equipment and found 2 videos containing indecent images of a child aged around 8. Brooks, whose record includes sexual assault of a child under 13, pleaded guilty and appeared at the Isle of Wight Crown Court on Monday for sentences. Defendant Brooks, Helen Easterbrook, said his suspended sentence included a treatment program, but he offended again before the treatment started. He realises now that there are real victims of these crimes, Miss Easterbrook said. It is not just sharing a photo online. There is a wider impact of the production of these images. She added Brooks' offending was reduced on each occasion. This time 2 videos were found, fewer than before. However, a probation service spokesman said Brooks was reluctant to engage fully in rehabilitation. Judge Peter Crabtree said, "These offences are serious, and I have no doubt you are well aware of how downloading these images causes untold psychological and physical harm to the children who are abused. The previous judge gave you a chance with your suspended sentence, but you didn't take that chance, and within 6 months you had committed another offence." He sentenced Brooks to 20 months in prison, 8 for the offence and 12 for breaching the suspended sentence.
Top award for Chef Roger. Island MP Bob Seeley has nominated Roger Sargent for the 2017-18 Parliamentary Pub Chef of the Year Award. Roger is known across the Isle of Wight as a true champion of local food. He is proprietor and chef at the Taverners Pub and Eating House. Roger says, "It's very humbling to receive this nomination, though it's not just me. I rely on a small, dedicated and hard-working team. Nominated chefs will be shortlisted for a cook-off." Mr. Seeley said, "The Taverners is an absolutely great pub. The menu is consistently inventive and creative."
New post office. A new post office is set to open in Gunville next month. The new office will open at Central Convenience Store at 1 p.m. on December the 5th and be open 7 days a week between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. Customers will also be able to take advantage of a wide range of banking services, including cash withdrawals and balance inquiries.
And a yacht's been rescued. Ride Inshore Rescue was called to assist a stricken yacht with a crew of 6 on Wednesday. Solent Coast Guard called out the rescue crew at 4:35 p.m. following a report the 38-foot sailing training yacht Thunderflash had engine failure about a mile off Fishbourne. The lifeboat towed the yacht to Cowes and returned to Ryde.
A biker in crash. A motorcyclist was taken to hospital following a collision with a police car yesterday, Thursday. Police and ambulance crews were called to Whippingham Road East Cowes at 6:36 a.m. after a motorcycle skidded and hit the front of a police car. The man in his 20s was taken to hospital. His injuries were not life-threatening.
More rise in crime, more than on the mainland. Following shocking increases in violent crime, serious sexual offences, hate crime and burglary, is the island still a safe place to live? The recorded crime rate now stands at 65 incidents per 1,000 people, just shy of the national average of 68 incidents. Furthermore, the island's crime rate is significantly higher than in similar areas, and the annual increase is larger than in Southampton and Portsmouth. Figures published by the island's Community Safety Partnership, CSP, which comprise the Isle of Wight Council, Police and Health Services, reveal 3,347 violent crimes, 245 serious sexual offences, and 162 house burglaries were committed between April 2015 and March 2016. There were 1,032 domestic violent offences, 120 knife crimes, and 91 hate crimes, with race hate, primarily targeting the Asian community, increasing to become the most common kind. Almost 1/3 of crimes committed during the year, a staggering 3,300, were anti-social behaviour incidents. The rate of public order offences was 6 per 1,000 people, well over the national average of 4 offences, and alcohol and public place violence rocketed by 31% compared to the previous year. They were among the issues raised by residents in a survey carried out by the CSP earlier this year. The 365 respondents listed antisocial behaviour, including dog fouling, rowdy behaviour, street drinking, drug dealing and littering, drugs and alcohol, violent crime, road safety and burglary among their main concerns. Almost 1 in 5 said they had been a victim of crime in the past year, but 40% had not reported it, largely because they felt nothing would be done or because they did not trust the police. The majority said they felt safe in their community, but 15% felt quite unsafe or not at all safe. 1 in 5 felt unsafe going out at night. A report on the CSP's plan for the forthcoming year is due to go before the Council's Scrutiny Committee on Tuesday. Despite the challenge posed by funding cuts, it includes plans to reduce the island's high number of youth reoffenders by asking charities to provide activities for them and holding events to improve community confidence.
Celebrating vital work of island carers. A new event will celebrate the work and achievements of carers throughout the island. The inaugural Isle of Wight Care Awards, organised by the Isle of Wight Care Partnership, takes place at Norwood House on Friday, December the 15th, supported by industrial sponsors. The 8 award categories include Registered Manager of the Year, Care and Support Worker of the Year, and Isle of Wight Hero of the Year. Organiser Ian Bennett said the positive side of care is often overlooked, and this evening will give care providers and their staff a chance to celebrate the work done every day across the island. We are encouraging people to receive care services and their families. whether in a residential setting or in their own home, to nominate people for the awards. The partnership is an umbrella organisation designed to bring together the island's care industry. For further information to nominate somebody or to book tickets for the event, visit www.iowareawards.com.
Train strike hits island 2 days. No Island Line trains will run for 2 days next week due to strike action on South Western Railway. The strike will affect services on Wednesday and Thursday, and no trains will run between Shanklin and Ryde Pierhead, although there will be a replacement bus service available. Members of the Rail Maritime and Transport (RMT) union have instructed Guard members to go on strike as part of an ongoing dispute. And unrelated to that, there's another little article. Australia themed bar for Newport. The Yates pub chain could be leaving the Isle of Wight forever. Stonegate Pub Company, a national chain which owns more than 600 pubs across the UK, has submitted plans to convert the Newport High Street pub into an Australian-themed walkabout bar. If successful, it would be the first walkabout on the island, and the Australian-themed bar will be one of 25 sites across the UK. The planning consultation runs until November the 17th.
Youth jazz band set up on the island. Thanks to tuition courses run during the year's Newport Jazz Weekend, a wave of interest in jazz from young local musicians resulted in discussions to form an Isle of Wight youth jazz orchestra. Much interest from music teachers and respected musicians willing to teach and sponsors, which includes Newport's Key Arts, which provided a free rehearsal space, together with the backing of the Isle of Wight Music Hub and the National Youth Jazz Orchestra, swiftly followed. Jim Thorne, who established the orchestra, said the NYGO has given us very useful guidance, and as well as looking for local financial support and sponsors, we are applying for a grant towards the cost of tuition arrangements, equipment and rehearsal space. We have about 15 interested young musicians, and once word gets around, there will be substantial interest. The orchestra, with Jez Gray as musical director, is aimed at musicians up to the age of 25. Musicians should have an interest in jazz in all kinds, in learning improvisation with a willingness to have a go, and ideally be at a minimum of grade 5 standard or equivalent. Playing with other musicians brings music alive and is a wonderful social experience for young musicians. If numbers allow, there are plans to run both a senior and junior band. The orchestra's first get-together was on Wednesday. A website is currently being constructed, and all interested musicians for their parents can make contact on iwyjo@mail.com.
Burglar found after 9 months on the run. The 30-year-old freshwater man, who failed to appear in court for the conclusion of his burglary case, has been found by police. Luciano Dent from Monk's Lane Freshwater was arrested in Dorset on Monday after being on the run since January. Dent was on trial at the Isle of Wight Crown Court for 3 counts of conspiracy to commit burglary with intent to steal and 1 of burglary. He failed to attend court and was found guilty in his absence. Dent also failed to appear at the same court on February the 24th for sentencing, which was adjourned. He was arrested and remains in custody prior to sentencing at the Isle of Wight Crown Court on a hearing date to be arranged.
Prime Minister supports poppy appeal. Theresa May has donated to the Royal British Legion after meeting with fundraisers at Downing Street. The Prime Minister greeted Iraq and Afghanistan war veterans Paul Wheeler, 35, and George Taylor, 17, at number 10 before placing a donation in the collection tin and having a poppy pinned to her jacket. Earlier this year, Mr. Wheeler of Wootton ran almost 3,000 miles across America to raise money for the Legion. He said being invited to Downing Street to cap off his achievement was unexpected and somewhat mind-blowing. He added, as a former serviceman, "I know how important the poppy appeal is and the support it gives our serving personnel, veterans and their families. On the importance of keeping the work of the Legion in the minds of the young people, he said, it is huge, especially with Rethink Remembrance this year to carry on. I think a lot of people automatically think of the British Legion and the poppy as a symbol, in particular with our older generation of veterans, but it is not the case at all. We should reflect upon the contributions made by all generations of armed forces members." Mrs. May said she will wear her poppy with pride. She said it is inspiring to hear the stories of those who raise money and awareness for the Royal British Legion. They set up an example we can all follow by buying a poppy and supporting our armed forces community.
God's Hill 20 miles per hour limit will not be enforced. A blanket 20 mile per hour speed limit is to be introduced in God's Hill, despite objections from the police who say they will not enforce it. The move, which will cost the Isle of Wight Council £12,538, follows a plea from residents concerned about pedestrian safety, particularly given the number of tourists walking through the village and the lack of pavements. In addition to the High Street, roads affected include parts of West Street, Church Hill, Church Hollow, Hollow Lane, Newport Road, School Crescent and School Road. But police said none of the 4 collisions during the past 5 years were due to speeding, and none has occurred in the High Street. Furthermore, without additional traffic calming measures, they warned a lower limit could actually increase casualties by as much as 14%. According to their consultation comments, given the lack of accidents, it appears any concerns are unnecessary and therefore no changes are required. Generally, traffic is slow in the High Street at busy pedestrian times. But at quiet pedestrian times, speed increases, and any attempt to reduce this speed will cause frustration to motorists. Finally, there must be no expectation the police will enforce this speed limit. Further requests made during the consultation to include the whole of the School Crescent estate, plus the full length of Church Hill, Hollow Lane and Church Hollow to safeguard children walking to and from school, churchgoers and horse riders, was turned down. The decision to introduce the 20 miles per hour limit has been made by Transport Cabinet member Councillor Ian Ward, using delegated powers. Councillors have until 5 p.m. on Tuesday to call it in. Lisa Choi of popular pub The Taverners said, "This is definitely needed. People have to walk in the road as there are no pavements, and 30 miles an hour is too fast. My children and their friends walk through the village, and I think this will make it safer for them. I'm really surprised the police aren't behind it. I think it's just luck there hasn't been an accident due to speeding. Do we have to wait to be hit or killed before we do this?"
Historic Newport building rescued. A house in Newport that is nearly 300 years is being renovated by a builder as a family home. The Grade 2 listed property in Lugley Street was in danger of collapse until builder Jason Turner stepped in and bought the historic house, which was built in 1725. Now, along with his family, Jason is renovating the building back to its original condition and hopes to complete the restoration in around about 4 months' time. Both he and his family are helping with the project in a bid to keep the costs down. He said there was a structural problem. Nobody knew how bad it really was. It will look as good as new when it's finished. It has been neglected for years. Included in the work is the removal and rebuilding of the front of the house, which was buckling, and replacing window frames.
Death of top island food firm owner. Hamilton's Fine Food have closed, and its much-loved owner has died. Andy Gustar, who was in the meat industry for around 55 years, died at Earl Mountbatten Hospice, Newport, on Tuesday. The company, which had butcher's stores in Cowes and Newport, ceased trading the day before his death. The 70-year-old of Cowes had been battling a terminal illness for 12 months. Mr. Gustar was at the helm of Hamilton's for 24 years and previously had shops in Scarrett's Lane and Pyle Street in Newport and Wootton. His daughter, Kerry Gustar, said, "We are deeply heartbroken. We would like to thank our loyal staff, customers and suppliers for supporting us throughout our trading time." And Mr. Gustar's obituary will be included in next week's County Press, and there are already coming in tributes paid to a first-class man. Readers have paid tribute to Andy Gustar on the County Press Facebook page. Simon Lawton said, "I first met Andy in 1975 when Kerry was still a twinkle in his eye. He helped out at Bishop's in Ryde to earn a little more to look after his growing family. Lovely man, a true gent. My thoughts are with all the family, and especially Kerry." Linda Smith said, "What a wonderful man. I knew Andy for 36 years, using butchers at Wootton and Newport. R.I.P. Andy, thinking of your family." Colin Ross said, "Andy Gustar, a first-class man in every sense, and a great help for charities and community projects. Our thoughts are with you, Kerry." David Holmes said, "Such sad news. Andy was a fantastic character, hard-working and passionate about the products he sold. We'll miss him and his smile. My thoughts are with you, Kerry. R.I.P. Andy. It was a pleasure to know you. Tracy Lowe said, such sad news. I remember Andy from Vectis Court of Drums years ago when my daughters were members. Lovely family. R.I.P. My thoughts are with you all. Rachel Hibbard said, a lovely gentleman and a great asset to the island. A sad loss. Clive Wight said, such sad news. A real gentleman. Elaine Lawton said, sending our thoughts and prayers to you, Kerry, and the family at this sad time. R.I.P. Andy, you are a lovely man, and Simon loved knowing and working for you.
Loos to remain open at night. Public toilets in Bembridge will remain unlocked at night despite concerns they are being used by drug users. Parish councillors also stepped back from buying self-locking mechanisms on toilet doors as they would cost around £1,500 each to fit. Chairman Councillor Marianne Sullivan claimed one of the biggest problems the council faced was drug taking in toilets. However, Councillor Richard Weaver warned councillors at their October meeting against blowing the issue out of proportion. He said it is a few people and it is a few people who are vandalising them. I am really against locking toilets. If we think of it as young people, we should be trying to engage with them. Members decided against locking the toilets at night, but agreed to raise the issue of vandalism and drug use with the police.
Fears for future of landmark tree. The days of the East Cowes umbrella tree could be numbered. The landmark tree, which withstood the Blitz, the great storm of 1987 and more recently Storm Brian, has shown signs of disease and could be cut down. In 2014, the community came together to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the planting of the tree, which has seating beneath its weeping canopy and is a popular meeting place. It could go the same way as the umbrella tree on Prince's Green at Cowes, which was felled and a replacement sapling planted, which was subsequently vandalised last year. East Cowan councillor Carl Love is among those defending the tree from the chainsaw and is urging East Cowes Town Council to resist the chop. He said, there's no sign to me of it dying, and there is no sign of rot within it either. In my opinion, all it needs is a good clipping. Our town will look so bare without it, and it will take many years for a replacement to mature. The tree is a significant emblem of the people's struggles, enjoyments and town history. As a part of the East Cowes 2019 celebrations, the tree will also celebrate the 100th anniversary of the town's first daily market. It was held around the umbrella tree. In a statement, the Isle of Wight Council said no decision on the tree's future had yet been taken. A spokesman said, unfortunately, a fungus that is known to feed on decaying trees was noted recently on the umbrella tree. After a reputable expert confirmed the tree was dying, further information was sought from the Isle of Wight's tree expert. This advice confirmed the tree is dying due to major levels of fungal infection and recommends two options: to prune the tree by about a third to reduce the risk of it falling, or to cut it down and replace. The advice is the required pruning would ensure it is safer for the next year, after which regularly 6-month inspections will be required. All parties are aware this tree is a distinctive and popular local feature, but the safety of those who pass by or sit underneath it must be a principal consideration. No decision on the future of the tree has been taken, and all available options, which might include suspending the use of seating or installing a wider perimeter fencing, continued to be explored.
And that's about finished the reads from the press this week, and we wish you all a very good week to come together.
And it's goodbye from Imelda too, and wishes you a very good weekend as well. I hope it'll be a bit warmer.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you want me to start introducing? Yeah. You do the first letter. Hello, we're continuing with reading the county press, second half, and this is Sonara.
And I'm Jan.
And we're going on to the letters.
And the first letter is from Peter Hunt, who's Vice Chair of the Isle of Wight Prostate Cancer Support Group. The Isle of Wight Prostate Cancer Support Group, formerly UCWE Care, has grown and flourished since its inception more than 6 years ago. It started as a result of the friendship and mutual concerns of patients travelling together on the hovercraft and in taxis for radiotherapy treatment at Queen Alexandra's Hospital in Cosham, there being no facility on the island. It offers friendship and support to new and existing patients and their families, and has raised funds for local initiatives and Prostate Cancer UK. One of its key successful aims is to raise awareness of the disease, which will affect an average of 1 in 8 men, and encourage islanders to seek early and potentially life-saving testing and diagnosis. It offers social events, monthly meetings, and a newsletter, as well as maintaining a website. The trustees are also represented on community and hospital groups. Patient transport for travelling groups to and from Southsea was previously arranged in taxis, and more recently by Daisy Bus, which met hovercraft services. The trustees have therefore been dismayed by the news that from November the 10th, this vital link is to be withdrawn. Most patients have to make the cross-Solent journey at least 20 times, often during periods of considerable stress and apprehension. The cost and practical implications of the proposed withdrawal are very disturbing and may involve taxi fares of up to £20 or reliance upon bus services, which may conflict with appointment schedules, as well as costs involved in getting to ride. Meanwhile, existing or prospective Queen Alexandra's patients may check for updates and ring David Kiley, who's the chairman, on 407 662, or Peter Hunt on 872 409.
Hail to the ale. This is from Tim Marshall from Isle of Wight Camera, CAMRA. As someone involved in the recent Isle of Wight Classic Buses, Beer and Walks weekend, I was disappointed to read the comments by Jonathan Young in CP Weekend on the 27th of October. While his article appears to have been intended as whimsical, some references, compounded by the headline, imply that there was widespread rowdy behaviour. No reports of bad behaviour were received from bus drivers, publicans, police, or members of the public. While we would not wish to be oversensitive, it is worth reiterating that the weekend is now significant in the tourist calendar. It's difficult to put a figure on the benefits, but we know many visitors come over for a long weekend. It's organised by a small group of volunteers, with support coming from the Isle of Wight Bus Museum, vehicle owners, and our band of camera stewards. As the article acknowledges, happy punters and joyous queues were a more accurate reflection of the weekend. Mr. Young's constituency is a popular destination, and I would hope he welcomes the boost. One grateful visitor on Facebook: "Thank you everyone for another superb event. You really have created a gem here." Enough said, I think.
Silence is not so golden, says Sam Turner of Sandown. A few days ago, I was shopping in Sandown High Street and wished to cross the road to shops the other side. As we know, Sandown High Street is one way, so I duly looked and listened, and nothing was coming. I went to step off the curb, and a car on my side of the road, and a foot or so from where I was about to cross, suddenly lurched forward in complete silence. Not a murmur, not a whine, just total silence. I hadn't even noticed if there was a driver in the vehicle. The whole high street was quiet, and not too many people about anyway. I was startled and stepped back. Just as startled as the driver, in fact, who then continued on his way. A battery-powered car? How do we know they are about to move? How are we to know they are coming? If high-sided vehicles may block the view, what of the elderly? Great strides in technology, but is silence so golden? Not anymore, he says.
Park and ride, better answer, from Bill Moore of Gunville. I have some sympathy with the letter How to Cut Newport Traffic Nightmare in County Press 27th of October. However, I feel this suggestion to build a bridge over the Medina north of Newport will only increase the amount of traffic in and around Newport. A cheaper solution would be to create a park and ride facility at the racecourse roundabout where the Circus Big Top was recently sighted. At present, there are some 7 buses an hour passing this location, serving Newport, Ryde and East Cowes. Indeed, if you look at the stub end of the road by the side of the roundabout, it appears that this is already used as unofficial park and ride site. When I drive to either Cowes or Ryde, I use park and ride facilities at both locations, and feel the creation of such a scheme outside Newport would help to cut the traffic congestion in the town. And there's an editor's footnote. The letter Mr. Moore refers to was incorrectly labelled as coming from a Mr. D. Armstrong. In fact, it came from Mr. A. Thurl of Newport.
And also on the subject of the Wight link, I have had enough of leaving my friends' dinner parties feeling loathed because I express a fondness for the service provided by Wight Link. Wight Link offer a fantastic service with warm and friendly staff, delicious beverages and comfortable soft furnishings. A bridge can't offer these things. Bridges can't talk.
Water park would turn tourism tide, is the opinion from Carrie Ann Mosley of Gurnard. I can't help but feel tourism is dying on the island. A few months ago, the cafes were packed, the beaches full, and the local economy was booming. But in the past few weeks or so, I've noticed a severe lack of excitement on the streets. I've spotted fewer tourists, and places have apparently been shutting earlier due to the lack of demand. The money and land Asda was built upon seems like a waste. To a company like Walmart, it might seem like a drop in the ocean, but over here, that is such a big deal. We almost lost a football ground to it, and the shied traffic system has lost its charm entirely. Why didn't we put this money to better use? The council is forever engaging in the idea that tourism is the bedrock of the island. So why not interact with that in a more fiscally responsible way? I've had several ideas on how we could have better used this land, and the best one of the lot, I think, is a water park. A water park would give young people a place to go to have fun, getting to know water better. For young children, that can be tough, and opportunities to have fun in the water are sparse. It has potential to be an exciting attraction, with slides and flumes and such. We went to one at Centre Parks last March with our nieces, and they had an amazing time.
And replying to Mrs. Clav, who wrote a letter to the County Press on the 27th of October, the company with a factory at Binstead referred to was Columbia Products Company Limited. It produced beach bags, cosmetic bags, perfumes, cosmetics and toiletries in Sherborne Avenue. Bottle production, screen printing, quilting was all undertaken in-house. Starting with Betty Lou perfume brand for Woolworths, their main brand was Aronde, which was sold to chemists and department stores. The company exported widely as far as the Falkland Islands. My late husband retired in the mid-1980s, and the company continued to trade under new management for some years. The land was owned by the council, who wisely used it to build homes. I think this is still of interest, as people often come up to talk to me on the subject in Ryde.
And on to looking back. 100 years ago, on November the 6th, 1917, an island couple raised an important war wedding question that made it all the way to the War Office. The couple married in Switzerland, where the man was being held as a prisoner of war. However, when his wife tried to apply for a regimental separation allowance, her request was denied because the marriage had taken place in a foreign country. The War Office supported the decision until the island's MP threatened to mention the issue in Parliament. A few weeks later, the wife received a letter granting her the allowance.
And 75 years ago, the Bishop of Portsmouth addressed more than 400 members of the West Wight Mothers' Union. Representatives of each branch waved banners and wore blue veils. The bishop said he was glad to have the encouragement which he always gained from a large gathering of Christian mothers. Also 75 years ago, the Isle of Wight branch of the Russia Today Society had a packed meeting at their celebration of the Soviet Republic. Held in Newport Guildhall, it celebrated 25 years since the revolution. The vicar read a telegram from the UK Soviet ambassador, which offered every good wish for a successful meeting.
50 years ago, on November the 11th, 1967, an island family emigrated to America because they believed Britain held no future for the younger generation. The Hales family from Cowes made the move to Adelaide with their 2 young children. Doreen Hales said, "We'd been thinking about emigrating for about 2 years. We think in the future there will be no scope for our children and youngsters generally in this country." And bombs discovered near St Mary's Hospital proved to be harmless. Workmen dismantling the former army water tanks near the hospital were shocked to find several pieces of corroded metal lying in the bottom of the tanks that turned out to be smoke and water bombs. A bomb disposal squad was called, which safely removed them.
25 years ago, a top Isle of Wight night spot was faced with closure following a trade slump which threatened 20 jobs. Zanies at Sandown saw a slump in attendances and was hit hard by the recession. Director George Main said, "I cannot believe how hard times are at the moment. We weathered the recession in the early 80s, but this time around it is far worse, although we are still trying to fight on." Also 25 years ago, a supermarket demo sparked a fight back against the new Co-op store in Cowes. A group of pro and anti-supermarket campaigners clashed at the Terminus Road site. The protest, organised by 2 Cowes shopkeepers, burst into life when a section of town traders in favour of the supermarket arrived.
And 10 years ago, on November the 2nd, 2007, a former RAF firefighter was reunited with a competition medal he won 55 years ago, thanks to an auction website and a curious Australian. The medal was awarded to Mike Tankard of Shanklin for firefighting in 1952 and was lost soon after. It was bought on eBay and taken to Queensland, where Colin Ellicock, also ex-RAF, decided to reunite it with its owner. After placing an appeal in the RAF's quarterly magazine, Mike was reunited with his medal, much to his delight. And also 10 years ago, every police emergency response car was kitted out with knife detectors to help fight against knife crime. As part of Operation Sharp, police on the island were given handheld metal detecting devices to be used when patrolling the streets.
And 10 years ago, a young Chelsea fan realised his dream when he accompanied his favourite team onto the pitch. 12-year-old Matthew G. of Cliff Road, Ventnor, applied to be a Chelsea mascot when he was 6 years old and spent 6 years waiting patiently for his turn. He said, "I'd love to be a professional footballer one day and play for Chelsea."
And Wight memories. Don't go to dreary, in inverted commas, Cowes. Historian and author Alan Stroud delves into County Press archives through the decades and affirms that nothing is new in Cowes. Cowes described as dreary and to be shunned like the plague? Surely not. Well, yes, according to some of the letters written to the county press over the years. One over 70 years ago, taking a pop at the new floating bridge of the day, and another showing potholes and police shortages are recurring themes. The slurs begin in November 1889 with a football match between Portsmouth Grammar School and Cowes. The county press write-up of the game coyly reported during the match a little disagreement took place. That was putting it mildly. This wonderful missive appeared on that week's letters page, telling a very different tale. Sir, on Saturday, the Portsmouth Grammar team played Cowes. One of the most disgraceful scenes ensued that it has ever been my misfortune to witness. The style of play affected by the Cowes Club is sufficiently well known in the district and needs no comment of mine. Suffice it to say, their game was directed more towards maiming and disabling their opponents than any other apparent end, and that one of their number was ordered off the ground for insulting the referee, the crowd encouraging their champions by such gentle ejaculations as, knock him down, break his, all starred, leg, etc. This, however, was nothing as to what followed. We were beaten. What would have happened had we had the misfortune to win, I am at a loss to conjecture. Leaving the field, we were surrounded by a crowd of 200 and subjected to every indignity short of physical violence. We were pelted off the ground with mud and clods, and the crowd never left us till we were on the boat. Such scenes, I am told, are by no means infrequent at Cowes. I have made public this experience in the hope that every self-respecting club in the county will henceforth shun Cowes like the plague. Yours, Hugh Hastings. We can only be thankful Hugh didn't have a cup of tea while he was there. In January 1891, Resident wrote to the county press, "Sir, I occasionally see persons are fined before magistrates for selling adulterated milk. I hope in the public interest such powers may be exercised in West Cowes, as for some time past the water we are supplied with is so white and the milk so blue that on dark mornings it is nearly impossible to distinguish one from the other."
50 years on, in October 1945, a reader took a satirical swipe at the pleasures of his hometown. "Sir, regarding the recent discussion on the lack of amenities at Cowes, I invite the attention of the disgruntled to the free amusements already provided. First, the floating bridge. It has been said the present bridge was acquired after the flood. Certainly, its emulation of the Ark, in frequently remaining perched high above the flood, lends credence to the theory. Do our disgruntled population wish to have a flutter? Well, there is a ready-made source of a gamble on the number of minutes the Cowes Southampton boat will be late in starting or arriving, and by how many minutes you will miss your London train. Hunting is also provided. Amusement can be derived from finding the policeman or hunt the convict. Is life lacking in thrills? A wholesome amusement is to board a bus between Cowes and Gurnard. With potholes scientifically spaced by a considerate council, all the thrills of the switchback may be experienced. If amusement in more sober amenities is preferred, nothing is quite so satisfying as gazing on those bombed sites which the council have so thoughtfully left for time and weather to improve the devastation and dirt. Therefore, let us not seek further worldly pleasures, but remain content with the amenities which are at hand." And that was from P.A. Horwell of Sarnia, Battery Road, Cowes. Mr. Horwell would have been thrilled to read the finer points of the Council's 20-year development plan, released in 1952. Cowes residents might like to count on their fingers the number of proposals in it that actually came to pass. The plan proposes to use the following as major traffic routes: Cross Street, Shooters Hill, Carvel Lane, Terminus Road, Park Road, Union Road and Market Hill. There is a long-term proposal for a Medina Bridge. Shopping centres would be provided near Bellevue Road. Industrial development areas would be at Cross Street and Denmark Road. Residential development was planned for Northwood Park. The grounds of Stanhope Lodge would be developed as a public open space, and the car park at Park Road would become a bus station. In August 1958, A.M. Moore of Bayswater, London, W2, came to Cowes. It is fair to say, was not best impressed. Sir, when I arrived at Cowes last week, I asked a resident what there was to do here. She replied, if it is hot, you sunbathe on the green. If it is cold, you walk up and down the high street. If it is wet, you shelter in Woolworths. And in the evening, you stay indoors or go to a pub. I thought this was quite a joke, but found it quite true. Apart from a cinema and dozens of small pubs, there is quite literally nowhere to go. This is my first visit to Cowes, and it will be my last. I can honestly say that I have never had a more dreary holiday than in Cowes. Just as well for Cowes, there was no TripAdvisor back in the day.
And on to My View. This is Jake Harrison. And spare me from this new fad of running. The Isle of Wight has become home to a crazy cult of obsessed, fashionable runners who insist on poncing around their local parks in fluorescent tights, ridiculous headbands, and an addiction to alfresco adrenaline. But beneath all of the expensive energy gels and now 50 iPod playlists lies a question. Has running become a vanity statement rather than a beneficial and healthy hobby? Aren't we all supposed to rest at the weekends? What's going on? Why has a morning jog around the local park now become every mum's favourite hobby, or apparently everybody's favourite hobby for that matter? Mums, dads, children, dogs, cats, all now apparently have a huge and healthy point to prove. Taking to the tracks as early as 6 a.m, dressed from head to toe in god-awful tight clothing, armed with raw egg and mythical super drinks that give them special powers and make them run further, like that bunny in the Duracell advert. I can't even step out of my flat without almost being killed by a herd of long-distance lunatics. Some are soul searchers, others hunt in packs. Watch out. They even speak in a different language. I've never even heard of such terms such as fartlek, high intensity and sub. Have you? Such media, social media, has also created new self-obsessed generation of vain runners. And this raises a question. Has running evolved into a fashion? Skinny women will insist on posting pictures of themselves in their Sports Direct bras, bathed in sweat with runny makeup all down their faces. Is that supposed to be attractive? I really don't think so. Manly men will proudly show off their medals and images of their running maps and routes, and we are supposed to sit back behind our screens and applaud them, as if they've just won an Olympic gold medal. If I have to sit there scrolling through my Facebook news feeds, reading everybody's new PB once more, I think I'll have to run to the nearest cliff edge and jump off. Running is a monumentally monotonous hobby. Have you ever spoken to a runner? I've had far more interesting conversations with my morning bowl of porridge. I've seen more colours in an elephant. And not only is it boring, it's ridiculously expensive too. A decent pair of running trainers will cost you upwards of £80, and that's just the start. High-tech GPS performance watches are a must-have that will set back your bank account back a good £200. Then you have to fork out to enter the true test of all runners, a marathon. Yes, it can be quite beneficial. It gets you outdoors, it improves sociability, and allows you to pretend to be healthy and interesting to all of your friends. But it can have physical impact on your tired limbs in the future, and can even contribute towards arthritis. I ran a half marathon once, because I'm only apparently half as good as the real athletes out there. And if it was basically a torturous trail of blood, sweat and more sweat, I finished looking like a dishevelled dog. The next morning my body had completely given up. I ached for a week and was completely miserable. I would rather have got the flu or a bullet. I know one thing for sure. There are, without a doubt, much more exciting and exhilarating hobbies to try in your free time. Running is draining and dull. Don't waste your time. Apparently a brisk walk is just as beneficial. So, on that note, I'm off to the pub so that I can get the best of both.
And following on, Matthew Chatfield writes, does charity really begin abroad? We're an insular lot, us island people, and I'm a prime example. I really don't cross the water that often, and I'm quite comfortable with that. So it's something of a pleasure to meet someone from far away who has actively sought out the island and come to visit. This autumn, I met a remarkable couple of friends who had done just that. Recently retired, two ladies from Hanover in northern Germany left their husbands at home and took off on an 8-week sojourn to Newport. Edda Freak and Gabby Podlas met me when they came to volunteer at the Gift to Nature charity shop, part of the organisation I work for. These enthusiastic travellers were also determined to integrate with us locals. I asked them why they had come to volunteer at Gift to Nature in Holyrood Street. We are both interested in socialising, explained Gabby, and we wanted to practice our English and meet people. Certainly, serving in a charity shop has proved to be a great way to do both those things. To my surprise, I learnt there are not really any charity shops in Germany. Second-hand shops, yes, but charity fundraising shops were not something that Gabby and Edda were previously familiar with. In Germany, they pointed out, with wry smiles, that things are mostly paid for with taxes. Bede Townsend, another friend of the two German visitors, thinks this is more than just a holiday. Working for a charity is very important to them, he explained. They like the environmental credentials of Gift to Nature, looking after the countryside, and they like that the money raised stays on the island. It's not unusual to visit the Third World and work for a charity, so why not the Isle of Wight? But how, I wondered, did they end up here? That was a little harder to explain. They considered Italy and France before making a positive choice to come to the UK. We thought we would come while we still can, said Edda, only half joking. They are well aware the Isle of Wight voted strongly for Brexit. But they were not intimidated. In fact, quite the opposite. People here have been very helpful and supportive, Edda said firmly. We think German people are not as polite as English people. That one took me aback. But she went on, we live in a city and we like the slower pace of life here. Perhaps they were more like our domestic tourists and downsizers fleeing from the bustle of London. Like my colleagues at Gift to Nature, I was sorry to say goodbye to our German volunteers who went back to Hanover last month. It was flattering and oddly reassuring to have been offered such generosity and support from an unexpected quarter, and I am confident the welcome they received will continue to be extended to European visitors in the future.
And now we move on to What's On. And on Friday, the 8th of December at 7 p.m, the Sinfonietta will be visiting All Saints Church in Ryde. Bookings are now open on www.ticketsource.co.uk/island concerts. They're doing a pretty good programme too. I've seen it.
Yes, I'm going to get tickets for that, definitely. And this is about Julie Clifton, head volunteer manager for Dress for Less, with Chris Kane of the Isle of Wight Society for the Blind. Charity shop moves. Charity boutique Dress for Less has expanded. The shop, which supports the Isle of Wight Society for the Blind, has moved to larger premises across the road from its previous shop in St James's Street, Newport. The boutique was established a couple of years ago to raise money for IWSB and specialises in upmarket, previously loved ladies' fashion and occasion wear. Under the guidance of lead volunteer manager Julie Clifton, who has a lifetime of experience in the fashion world, Dress for Less is renowned for delivering a personal and professional service to customers, many of whom have become loyal supporters. The opening evening was a sparkling occasion attended by many customers, volunteers, supporters and IWSB staff.
Service at Carisbrooke Castle. A field of remembrance will once again be opened at Carisbrooke Castle to commemorate those in the uniformed services. The castle will open its doors for people to visit the field between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. on Thursday, and on Saturday and Sunday between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. It will not be open on Friday. Crosses can be purchased at the castle, with proceeds going to the Royal British Legion. Refreshments at a small charge will be provided by the Women's Institute. A formal service of remembrance, which members of the public are welcome to attend, takes place at the castle on Thursday, November the 9th at 10:45 a.m.
Country music comes to Gurnard Pines on Thursday when Blackfoot Daisy plays for the Lucy Blackman Trust. Formed earlier this year, the band plays modern country covers such as Ward Thomas, The Shires, Carrie Underwood, Dixie Chicks and Pistol Annies, with classics from Dolly Parton and James Taylor. Blackfoot Daisy have played gigs such as Chale Show and the Hops and Harvest Boutique Festival in Kent. Band members are well-known island musicians. Tim Marshall plays with Kite, Risky Business, Smoke and Mirrors and Westwood. Sarah Miller trained at Bird College and was in Innovation, Smoke and Mirrors, Westwood, as well as singing solo cabaret. Jenny Wight is the daughter of island songwriter Martin Wight and was in Smoke and Mirrors, Westwood, Something About Mondays, Joe Saunders and other bands. With 7 solo albums to his name, Jamie Woodford, a regular at King's Theatre, Southsea, and a number of theatres across the island, plays with the Bob Howarth Big Band, RAF Big Band, and the Band of the Royal Marines. On Thursday, Blackfoot Daisy will be supported by Coda Acoustic, Sam Honey. Tickets are available from Gurnard Pines or the website.
We've got Terry's Talk to Guild, Sandown Evening Towns Women's Guild welcome speaker Terry Bonbrook to its next meeting at St John's Church Annex, St John's Crescent, Sandown, at 7 p.m. on Thursday. Mrs Bonbrook's talk is entitled "She Was Only a Lighthouse Keeper's Daughter, but..." New members and visitors are welcome. For details, call the Guild Secretary on 401490.
And in brief, a new group for men, Equals IW, which celebrates equality and diversity, hopes to develop a men's friendship group. Following the success of its women's friendship group, the charity has asked for suggestions on how the group could be run. Anyone interested in sharing ideas is welcome to attend a meeting at the Isabel Community Centre Cafe, Newport, to discuss plans for the group, meet new people and take part in activities. It will be held on Monday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Membership is open to men over 18. For details, you can email at eqinfo@iw.org.uk.
And an advert in association with Off the Rails in Yarmouth, Red Tie Theatre presents Allo Allo from the 24th of November 2017 to the 26th of January 2018. Murder on the Orient Express from 8th of December 2017 to 12th of January 2018. And Faulty Towers on the 15th of December 2017. I think that those are spaced out, each of those titles. Come and join us for a wonderful evening of comedy and light-hearted entertainment. Alongside the performance will be a 3-course set menu and drink on arrival. £40 per head. Larger parties welcome, but book in advance. Events start at 7 p.m. promptly. And the phone number is 01983 761 600 or offtherailsyarmouth@gmail.com.
The sacrifices of islanders who died in both World Wars and other conflicts will be marked at the Isle of Wight Royal British Legion Festival of Remembrance. The annual event will be held at Shanklin Theatre on next Friday, November the 10th.
Oh, and that, I'm afraid, is all we have time for, so it's goodbye from Sonara.
And goodbye from Jan.
This is the BBC.
This is In Touch, the magazine programme for people like me who are blind or partially sighted. I'm Peter Wight. Thanks for downloading this week's edition. Good evening. Tonight, are blind people unfairly blocked from the top job in their own organisation? We hear from the Shadow Disability Minister, who's concerned that they are. And 20 this year, the organisation giving opportunities to visually impaired actors.
He's coming.
He's coming.
It's coming.
He's coming.
He's coming.
He's coming. He's coming.
It's coming. He's coming.
He's coming.
He comes.
He comes.
He comes. He's here.
He comes. He's here.
He comes. He's here. He's here.
He's here.
Turning to face the central panel at the back.
He's here.
More about extant later in the programme. But first, last week we announced the appointment of Sally Harvey as the RNIB's new chief executive. This after a year spent as acting CEO. But Labour's Shadow Disability Minister has expressed concerns about the lack of opportunity given to blind applicants to take the top job in their own organisation. While having no problems with the appointment itself, Marcia de Cordova, visually impaired herself and given the disability brief after her surprise win in the June general election, is worried about the process which led to no visually impaired candidate being interviewed in the final stage of appointment.
Well, it sounds like it's probably a missed opportunity to actually appoint a blind or partially sighted person to lead a national organisation supporting people living with sight loss.
The trustees, if they were here, I'm sure would say, well, look, we've appointed the best person.
And it would be exactly and rightly in their gift to do so. But, I mean, I know a number of visually impaired people apply for the post that are suitably qualified. And I think it's a bit disappointing that none of them made it through to the final stage.
Why should RNIB have at least considered a visually impaired person in the final stage of the recruitment process and maybe not even appointed him or her?
I think it's really important to appoint the best person for any job that you're recruiting for so that you have the best candidate to deliver for you. But again, I said, for me, it's important that we lead by example when we say we want to see more blind and partially sighted people in work. And if you have some really good candidates, then it would be beyond me to say, why wouldn't they make it through to the final stage?
Do you think in some ways that organisations that work in the sight loss sector, for example, should maybe positively discriminate in favour of blind and partially sighted people?
No, I'm not going to go down the road of talking about positive discrimination. I just feel that it is a real missed opportunity to actually appoint a blind or partially sighted person to a role, a position that I know there are some suitably qualified candidates for.
Have they lost some credibility by not interviewing a blind and partially sighted person in the final stage of the recruitment process?
No, I wouldn't say they've lost their credibility because they've appointed a chief executive that I know is capable and able to do a job. And actually, I think she will do a fantastic job. But I will say, it's a missed opportunity that unfortunately a blind or partially sighted person wasn't appointed.
Shadow Disability Minister Marcia de Cordova talking with Tom Walker. Well, the new chair of the RNIB is Ellie Southwood. Ellie is blind herself and succeeds Kevin Carey in the post, who's also blind. I asked Ellie Southwood how she reacted to Marcia de Cordova's criticisms.
What really stood out for me, Peter, in listening just there to what Marcia was saying was she sounded disappointed. And in all honesty, I share that sense of disappointment that I wasn't able to recruit a blind or partially sighted chief executive to take us into the next phase of RNIB's evolution. The recruitment process was robust. We certainly put the candidates through their paces. And whilst there were several blind or partially sighted candidates at the second stage of our three-stage process, Marcia's absolutely right that there were, unfortunately, no blind or partially sighted candidates on the final list that I had to choose from.
Can we just put a bit of flesh on that, just to give people an idea of how the process worked and give us an idea of the numbers of visually impaired people who got at least to this middle stage?
Of course. So the process started in early August. We searched far and wide and we had astonishing interest, really, from an interest that made me really, really proud of what RNIB does. We had interest from across the world and from people from charities, from businesses, from public sector organisations, the whole range. After the closing date, the headhunting partner on this project interviewed the first set of candidates, and then they, alongside myself and our director of HR, we got that list down to 8 candidates. Of those 8 candidates, 3 candidates were blind or partially sighted. They went in front of an interview panel consisting of some of my fellow trustees, and that panel resulted in a short list of 4 candidates who were all sighted. So on the day when I was making an appointment decision, I only had sighted people to choose from.
And why do you think that was? They must have talked to you about why those people didn't make it, since I know that this is something that you're concerned about.
Definitely. And I've been very clear and open throughout this process that my ideal, my preference would absolutely to have worked with a blind or partially sighted chief executive. I've been very open about that. I think there's a couple of things that this raises. Firstly, of course, not all blind or partially sighted people would want to be chief executive of RNIB. And for some people, the timing perhaps wasn't right either. So that's the magical thing with recruitment, is the right person and also the right timing, of course. But also, I think it shines a pretty sobering light on the employment challenges that blind or partially sighted people are still facing. So still, whilst I was pleased we had 3 out of the 8 at the second stage who were blind or partially sighted, I'd love to have seen more. And it's quite clear that people still aren't getting the sorts of experience to compete alongside sighted peers for jobs like this.
So what criteria did they fail on?
There are a number of areas where blind or partially sighted people are not getting fair experiences and opportunities. And I'd highlight a couple as being around experience of finance and also some project management and delivery experience, I suppose. And that's absolutely not because blind or partially sighted people are unable to do those jobs. I think part of it is that in order to get to a senior level in those jobs, some of the jobs on the way up are really difficult to do. They come with accessibility challenges.
But then it would be fair to argue that if experience of running an organisation of comparable standing and complexity as the RNIB is a requirement, visually impaired people are seriously disadvantaged, because if an organisation like the RNIB won't give them the opportunity for leadership, how can you criticise other organisations or companies for not giving them a chance either?
It's a really fair point, Peter. And one of the reasons why I know Sally is the right appointment is because she feels exactly the same, because she is absolutely committed to improving the experiences of employment that blind or partially sighted people have. And that's within RNIB, but outside too. Of course, the number of people that RNIB employs who are blind or partially sighted is important, but so too is seeing people progress through their careers and get into senior jobs, and also get into senior jobs in other places too. And one of the things I'm talking to Sally about is how RNIB can support people who are working in other places to get exactly the sort of experience that they need to take on the top job, whether it's at RNIB or anywhere else.
Ellie Southwood, and doubtless you'll tell us how you feel about who runs the RNIB. Is having a visual impairment a vital qualification for the job, or is it just a matter of getting the right candidate, sighted or blind? Details about how to contact us at the end of the programme, and we'll be talking to the new CEO, Sally Harvey, next week. And now the theatre company Extant is about to celebrate its 20th birthday. Founded by blind director Maria Oshodi, who's been its driving force throughout, it was designed to create opportunities for blind and partially sighted actors who were finding it hard to make their way in mainstream theatre. It's chalked up a number of successful productions, travelled the world and never shied away from the experimental. Well, when she came into the studio earlier today, Maria, who has a background in working in disability theatre, recalled the landscape for blind actors which had prompted her to set up Extant.
Through my interest, obviously, in my theatre work and also the visually impaired performers that I was coming across, I was picking up a sense of disgruntlement, I guess, in terms of a sense of stuckness, that whether it be in the disability arts field or the mainstream field of performance, that visually impaired actors weren't really getting their fair share of cracking the whip, you know, in terms of performance and work opportunities.
Is that because, there were organisations and they were pan-disability, so was there a sense that they were, if you like, maybe more kind of wheelchair actor-led or something like that?
I think politically we were all on the same page at the time. I think it just felt in terms of aesthetics, artistic aesthetics, and particularly access for us as visually impaired audiences, that we didn't feel very visible. And there certainly seemed to be a lot of work, bespoke work happening within the deaf community, but nothing happening for visually impaired performers. So that's why I thought, well, let's start. Let's just try to get together, talk about some of this. The Arts Council at the time were being quite innovative, I think, by allowing artists to apply for very small pots of money to do experimental projects. So we applied for one of those and got it, and that's where the journey began.
And what were the things you were thinking, this is what we need, this is what isn't here at the moment?
When I went to college, I learnt about how to make theatre that was in a way, using the body to create character, to create environment, and using the body in very interesting ways. And I was kind of really intrigued about how I could couple that with, I suppose, the disabled body. You know, how more interesting would stories be told if they were told in a way where our impairments was being used creatively rather than us trying to work against, or not against it, but work in a way we were just trying to ape sighted performers. So I brought that agenda to the table and we started exploring and playing with all different types of performance and how we could start to sort of break some of those perceptions of visually impaired actors only being able to sort of work with their voice and not with their body. And our bodies are interesting. You know, how we move, how we negotiate, what we need to do in order to move around the world as visually impaired people is a really interesting starting point.
So you were actually saying, actually make a thing of your visual impairment. Don't try to pretend that you can find a door without feeling for it or that sort of thing.
And use that way of feeling for it in a really interesting way for you as a performer to move, to allow yourself not to be thinking, oh my gosh, am I moving like a sighted person to find this door? But that I'm moving as I would move myself to find this door, and that is okay. Because I kind of felt that, and I think this is true, that theatre's always looking for new ways of expressing itself. And, you know, to be authentic as a performer is a really interesting thing to observe.
Can I just ask you about your own personal sort of progress in this? Because you have chosen, as a totally blind person, quite a difficult road to go down, aren't you? I mean, it is very visual, however much you put it in terms of visually impaired people. Has it been difficult for you to keep on doing that?
Yes and no. In the main, in terms of generating ideas, no. You know, I just churn ideas out all the time. I'm constantly intrigued by all sorts of situations that I find myself in as a visually impaired person, and I'm using that constantly as material to feed into, oh, now that happened. What would it be like if we created a piece that was based around, you know, so always using that to push the envelope.
Can you give me an example of the sort of thing that might spark you off?
Let me think.
In a day-to-day situation.
I suppose, you know, it's interesting thinking about our arts and technology kind of development. We created a piece, a big sort of high-profile piece called Flatland, which was an installation in the dark where we used a robotic handheld device to guide visually impaired people through a dark environment and told a story that unfolded in the dark, being guided by this haptic device. And that came, I think, from me just being really curious about basically having very, very, very little sight, coming across things in my space where I touched something and suddenly it was there and it was revealed to me. And then I touched the next thing and suddenly it was there and it was revealed to me. And I thought, you know, rather than stories being told, I mean, when you go to theatre, it's very much a spectator sport. It's very much about story being mediated to you through visuals. But I thought, let's reduce this right down, or bring it into another place rather, and have the story being told element by element that's being revealed to the audience, you know, in a linear way, which is the way that I experience the world.
Yeah, because we don't experience everything all at once.
Exactly.
You don't see the whole of it.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly.
Yeah. You mentioned Flatlands, which is, I guess, a highlight. Have there been other highlights over the 20 years?
God, there's been like so many surreal and amazing moments in the company. I can't, you know, I feel so privileged, I really do, because I know that a lot of it has been, you know, it's been a lot of hard work, but also there's been a lot of reward, and some of those have been, obviously, the Arts Council have been, you know, very instrumental in supporting us and us receiving core funding regularly since 2008, which has been fantastic. But also, you know, some of the kind of wild, wacky situations we've been in. We toured a cabaret in the dark around the world for several years, and that included a bunch of, I think, 5 totally blind, visually impaired performers moving around the world on and off public transport systems, you know, in this kind of crocodile of white canes with our instruments dangling from us, you know, excuse me, are we at the right stop, getting out and then rolling into the theatre and just set it. And that was so liberating. It was fantastic. Often we didn't even work with an access worker. We just got ourselves about, you know, and it was like a troupe of travelling players in the old-fashioned way. That was a great moment.
And just finally, as part of your 20th anniversary celebrations, I know you're launching a particular initiative, a new one. Tell me about that.
Well, as you rightly say, it's our 20th anniversary this year. And part of our company for a long time was a fantastic, amazing performer called Tim Gebels, who sadly died earlier this year of cancer. And it's been a massive loss to the company.
And we've got, I think, an illustration of Tim's work. Can you just talk us into that?
Tim was in our 2016 tour of Ionesco's The Chairs, which is an absurdist piece where both Tim Gebels and Heather Gilmore, who are visually impaired, played the central characters, an old man and an old woman, 95 and 97. And they were both incredibly physical and incredibly verbose in this piece, and it was very demanding, two-hander. And you'll see, I think, by the next clip how incredibly consummate they were as performers.
Where was I?
The two of us came.
Using the mob to help me stand, to help me stand.
The two of us came.
The two of us
Katie
came.
Pie.
The two of us came.
The two of us came. Two of us came. Two of us came.
The two of us came to a great metal gate.
Oh, I'm right beside you, Poppy.
It's not the same!
That was Tim in performance, and you've got a particular way of marking his life, haven't you?
Yeah, at our 20th anniversary in November, we're very honoured that Gary O'Donoghue, who was the best friend of Tim, will be coming over to launch a bursary in Tim's name, a funding resource for any visually impaired person who wants to take up a piece of training or develop an idea, something that will enable their career within the performing arts, and they'll be able to apply or get somebody to nominate them. And just to say that in 2037, in 20 years' time, we're hoping that some of those people will be the people that will be standing in my place, you know, and be hopefully celebrating the 40th anniversary of Extant, because we really are now about supporting emerging artists coming through and developing their careers.
And somebody in my place might be interviewing them. Maria Oshodi, happy birthday to Extant.
Thank you.
And that's it for today. You can call our action line with your comments and your queries on 0800 044 044 for 24 hours after tonight's programme. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk, or you can click on Contact Us on our website. That's on www.bbc.co.uk/in touch, from where you can also download tonight's edition of In Touch and many others. From me, Peter Wight, producer Cheryl Gabriel and the team. Goodbye.